Hi, this is Christian Takushi, independent macroeconomist and geopolitical strategist. As our followers now, whenever we give an update, it's because we have changed our analysis or because our view strongly deviates from consensus. And that is currently the case on four major issues. I will talk today about the energy crisis, about the military alliance of the US, UK, and Australia. Third, the German elections, and finally, China Evergrande. Let's start with the so-called energy crisis. This energy crisis, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we've been talking about for years, at least 6.5 years. It's something that has been coming. We've seen it coming. We're not the only ones that have seen this coming. We've been warning people about this crisis that is to come. And it's coming because of our monetary policy. It's because of military trends and macroeconomic trends. Currently, a lot of media analysts and governments are telling you that this crisis is because of COVID-19. The economy is recovering, so there's too much demand. It's not true. The other thing that they're telling you is that that Russia is not delivering. Russia is delaying deliveries. Well, I would say that Russia has a certain interest in enforcing the start of Nord Stream 2. But should we blame Russia for looking after its own interests? Wouldn't we be doing the same if it was our interest? It's actually not enough. Russia's not delivering that much gas to cause this crisis. It wasn't expected even to do so. No, it's not Russia. Actually, what our governments and not all our governments, but what some of our government officials and economists and financial analysts are not telling us is the two main reasons for this energy crisis. And by the way, it's just beginning. The two main reasons are our own green transition policies. Our corporate leaders and political leaders have really messed it up. They didn't calculate it very well. They exited certain old industries way too fast, way too early. Things were not as fast as they expected, starting renewable sources. Well, and instead of saying, we're sorry, we messed this up, they're blaming Russia or blaming COVID-19. The transition to green energies is actually quite badly organized and coordinated in Europe. I wish they would have been a little bit more realistic and carried by pragmatism. Instead, they were led by idealism and some sort of anti-free market, sentiment. The result is very high gas prices. The other thing that is driving this energy crisis is 11 years of underinvestment. Ladies and gentlemen, all across the world economy, there is underinvestment in every area, in most vital areas, underinvestment. Why haven't companies invested? Because of our monetary policy. Our major central banks, the major central banks of the West, are printing money for the last 12 years and have reduced interest rates to zero or below zero. And when interests are at zero, corporations really don't invest. And if they invest, well, they borrow money to buy competitors. They can make profits with that. Accounting profits, by the way, not economic profits. But who cares about economic profits? Instead, people want to make quick money, isn't it? It's accounting profits. Yes. What else do they do to make profits? They buy back their own shares. They buy back their own shares with borrowed money, and they boost their earnings per shares, which is what people want to see. So that's another way to boost your profitability and your shareholder value. But it's adding zero to the economy. Now, corporations have just been doing the greedy, logical thing, which is, well, given the parameters that the government gives them, they do what is expected of them to make money quickly. So corporations have not been investing enough. And the lack of investments for 11, 12 years has led to shortages. shortages. And you just need a small disruption or a mid-sized disruption to have a big problem. And that is the main reason behind this. Even in Russia, there is, even the underinvestment in gas fields is taking place in Russia. Even there, it's very normal. We excluded Russia from the financial system, and even they don't get bank loans. No. And bank loans are given today for some shiny, interesting, as a tech company that has never produced a profit. They get money. Banks are not going to lend to some gas fields in Russia. Okay, they don't want to be shamed by some NGOs and the press. So what we are seeing is just a result of our own, policies, and that should be spoken. That should be said. It's our monetary policy that is driving prices higher. And this is why I strongly disagree with what some central banks are saying, that this is just a very short-term, temporary inflationary blip. It is not. Inflation is not running at 2, 3, 4%. Inflation is actually running at 5, 6, 7% if you will have access to real data. And the other thing that is happening is financial asset inflation that is running much faster, much higher. So we have basically a lot of inflation in the world. We have hyperinflation in stocks, bonds, and real estate. And now that inflation is beginning to spill over into the real economy, aided by years of underinvestment promoted by our central bank policies. So much to that. Second point will be AUKUS, the new military alliance of the United States and the UK, Australia. A lot of people in Europe are very angry. A lot of people in France are saying this is treason, betrayal. A lot of people are very angry, and I don't understand them. Some French officials said that this came completely out of the blue, and I also don't understand them because this was highly expected. Sooner or later, Australia had to do something. The deal they gave to France was based on studies and assessments that were done between 2009 and 2014, 2015. That was a period when China was opening up, and when most of our Western leaders were telling us that China is going to be joining the community of nations, opening up, etc. But over the past 5 years, China has changed course dramatically. There is no more opposition in China, no more dissent, no more independent opinion. There's quite a few persecuted minorities now there too, and China has taken quite a tough course, a tough stance on any dissenting opinion inside China, but also outside China. So in light of what we are seeing from China in the past 5 years, it's clear that the submarines that Australia ordered 5 years ago are no longer good enough. In the meantime, the EU has also become much more dependent on China, and the EU has not been able to contain the China pressures. Actually, the EU has become almost like a captive of China policy in the last 3 years. And we saw that very clearly over the last 18 months. So Australia had quite a few reasons to get nervous. The submarines they wanted to order 5 years ago are no longer able to contain a more aggressive or a more assertive China. So it is actually, I believe, very logical and in the interest of Australia for them to cut that order and to bet on, nuclear power submarines. The UK and the United States are doing the right thing. If I would be advising the US and the UK, I would tell them you're doing the right thing. I would also have suggested to do this, to cut off or to reduce their exposure to the EU. It's not total cut off, but it's reducing their exposure to the EU, reducing their exposure to NATO, and building up a new, more versatile military alliance. An alliance that is really worth something. A real operational useful military alliance. It's an alliance where you can defend your partner and your partner can defend you. Any alliance with the EU doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The EU cannot even defend herself, so how can she help defend the UK or the United States? Something we've been saying for more than 11 years. The dismantling of Europe's military was a horrible mistake. Wishful thinking was a nice idea, a pacifist idea, but it was a sad decision. I'm surprised that European leaders are still taking security for granted. They think that their security here, their nuclear security, military security in Western Europe is always there, that the US has a duty to provide it, and that Russia, China, or Turkey will never challenge that. I'm surprised to see that, because geopolitically all nations advance their national interests. It's their duty. It's the duty of Russia and China and Turkey to advance their national interest. And if we in Europe make terrible mistakes, it is their duty to take advantage of that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not a reason to see China or Russia as an evil. They're simply taking advantage of the horrible strategic mistakes that we're making in Europe. So the UK is doing the right thing. After Brexit, they are now upgrading the United States, and these Anglo-Saxon nations are building a military alliance that I believe is the core of a future global military or defense alliance of the United States. And in this alliance, you can only take in really committed countries that can help defend the United States, the UK, and they can defend themselves, right? So Japan and Israel and South Korea could actually be part of this, with a slight exception that those countries can easily drag the United States and the UK into war. That is the problem. Those countries are very, very exposed to really difficult geopolitical conflicts already. They could be attacked any moment. So you cannot have them at the same level. Japan and Israel will have to go into an intermediate level that I would call conditional strategic military allies, because you don't want to be dragged into war so easily by these countries. If Israel is attacked or Japan is attacked, which can happen anytime, then there is the United States and the UK will be dragged into war. Can Japan be dragged into war? Very easily. Taiwan is under the military umbrella of Japan. If China attacks Taiwan, Japan will be expected to do something within 24 hours, right? So at the European level, there are countries that are also being upgraded. They are Romania and Poland. But otherwise, the United States is downgrading the EU and NATO. It's a fact, and it should be actually spoken as a fact. The third issue we're looking at is the German elections. They have taken place last Sunday, and the results have been more or less as we have. Well, we were not the only ones that were expecting this result. They are not a major surprise. The red-green coalition has not taken place, but people are expecting definitely a government where the Green Party is going to be part of. The big winners of these elections in Germany are the Greens and the Free Democrats. By the way, the Free Democrats are the fourth largest party, but the biggest winner. Why? The Free Democrats are gaining momentum. They have momentum, while all the other parties have not achieved as much as they could have achieved. So it's the Green and the Free Democrats, the FDP. They're holding talks now, and they will decide whether they go with the socialists, the SPD, or whether they go with the union parties, the parties of Mrs. Merkel. It's interesting. It's not the the two largest parties in Germany, they're gonna basically decide how the new government is gonna look like, but it's actually the junior parties, Greens and Free Democrats, are going to decide. How interesting, right? The most interesting thing is this. What do you have to watch out for? Taxes. Taxes. The Green Party wants to introduce a global taxation for all Germans. The Green Party wants to introduce a wealth tax, and they also want to chase Germans all over the world, like the United States does. All over the world, they want to chase Germans and tax them. But the Free Democrats, they are the only, or the last and only pro-market party in Germany, you know. Also liberal in mindset, but economically conservative. And they don't want more taxes. Surely the Free Democrats think that wealth tax is very counterproductive, and that taxing Germans by citizenship and not domicile is definitely also not a very good idea. But one way or the other, they were going to have to make a compromise. So Germans living overseas, please pay attention to this, because the compromise might be that there will be no wealth tax, but that there will be a global taxation by citizenship. A very, very, very big step, and probably something that sets the tone for what other European countries in the EU are going to be doing. They are lacking money. They're going to try to raise wealth taxes, and they're going to try to tax their citizens wherever they go. So all the people that were trying to get an EU passport may have second thoughts very soon. Finally, China Evergrande. Wait a moment. Sorry, before I finish with Germany, something positive to say about the German elections is the very civilized way the elections were conducted. Even after the elections, post-elections, the party leaders were able to talk to one another in a very, I would say, amicable, friendly, civilized manner. It was very nice to see. This is how politics should be done. Emotional, even raising the voice when it's needed, but still keeping respect to one another, treating everyone with respect, and in a civilized way. This is something that has to be actually commended, I think. And here Germany shows a very exemplary way of how politicians should be conducting themselves, with a certain etiquette and with a certain respect. Last but not least, China Evergrande, our fourth topic. I will not lose many words on it. I don't believe it's a real crisis. Economists and financial experts will remember that China Evergrande was on the verge of collapsing somewhere around 2013, 2014. China is kicking this can for years now. This huge debt pile in China. This crisis has been orchestrated and prepared. So China Evergrande is something that the Chinese government has prepared. It's a highly controlled, orchestrated crisis that I wouldn't even call a crisis. So it's a diversion. Yeah, something's going to happen there. I guess China, Beijing wants to hurt their very rich, wealthy people and foreign investors. But I don't think that this is going on. China is going to let it get out of control. All right. A diversion. In the times of geopolitical conflict, anyway, expect a lot of disinformation and deception. Be very careful with the media and information you consume. As I've said before, most of what you see out there today is biased, paid by some interests, some governments, or some interest circles, or it is disinformation. So we have to be careful with what we consume, and everybody has to be responsible. The world looked like that also between 1936 and 1941. Already in those 5.5 years, you had to be very careful what you consume. So it's not very different today, except that we have social media, of course. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I hope that this was somehow added value for you. Thank you.